Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a confession to make. I've already forgotten how many of these podcasts I've done because I called this episode 6 and it's actually episode 7. So I guess we're going to have to decide who I forgot about at some point in this mix. But we have a really awesome guest today. I'm excited. I'm going to have him joining us here in just a couple of minutes. We're going to talk about drayage and all things West Coast right now. And I want to go ahead, though, and let you know who we have coming on in 2 Tuesdays from today. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have what's actually episode 8. So we're just going to skip episode 7. And we're going to have Jason Miller from the University of, from Michigan State University joining us. Really, really excited for this discussion. I've enjoyed Jason's content for a long time. I'm sure a lot of you guys have as well. And we're going to talk as much economics and logistics supply chain as we can in 30 minutes there. So today, without any further ado, I want to bring on my good friend, Ian Weiland. Ian, thank you so much for joining us. I do know that it is a lot earlier in California right now than it is here, but appreciate you being willing to jump on today.
Of course, the second one in, so it's not, it doesn't feel as early as it actually is. But these are, I've said this, these are super fun. They are not what drayage is at all. Like as far as having, drayage is not fun.
What?
So being able to do these and to shed some light on what it is we do from a drayage standpoint on the day-to-day is always super cool, and it breaks up the monotony.
Well, I can tell you that you have motivated me to get a way cooler podcast studio space set up because I love what you have going on there. And I'm going to, I'm going to eventually we're going to do something here. I need to get like the whole industrial look going and everything. So
or maybe come out here next time.
Yes.
Out here for sure.
We'll go live from your podcast.
Can you guys swing the camera? Like, I don't know if you've ever seen like the whole.
That's awesome.
There's a couple different, there's over there, there's some chairs that are pretty bougie, very manly. As far as,
the man podcast cave there.
This is a cave. This is for sure.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, I love it. And next time I'm out your way, I will definitely see if I can stop in. I'm actually going to be in Palm Springs in just a couple of weeks. So not too far.
Ooh, sounds like girls trip weekend.
Yeah, right. I wish it is for work, but all right, Ian, I know who you are. I know what you do, but it's possible some people in the audience don't. So can you just kind of give us, a quick overview of what you do, your time in the industry, and where you're at now?
Sure. I am. We do drayage. I pull containers from the terminal and take them to local Southern. Let me put it that way. I am a Southern California, LA Long Beach drayman. I pull containers out of the LA ports, Long Beach ports, and I take them to wherever the delivery order realistically says to take them to. We go as far as Northern California, Reno, Vegas, Phoenix, New Mexico. Anything further than that, financially, it doesn't typically make sense. And it is cheaper to transload the box. But as far as you
guys also operate some transload facilities, right?
We do. We have 2 transload facilities local, one in Compton, one in Long Beach, and then we have a cross stock in Fontana that we operate.
Cool. So how long have you been in drayage, and how did you get into drayage?
I have been doing drayage for just about 9 years now. Started out in over the road. I met a guy who had a bobtail flatbed. Yes, they exist. And he was like, hey, let's sell loads. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Well, we found the 2 people that need that type of load out of, only 2. Is how big the market is. But from there, I wanted something more. And I started a, start your own brokerage type deal with one of the big boys. And from there, I actually was cold calling. That's my background. And I met a gentleman, Julio Torres, who are the initials below JCT.
Okay.
I cold called him. I needed a trailer. He answered back, I don't have trailers. I do containers. And 2 months later, we've been a match made in heaven ever since. Don't tell my wife, I won't tell his. Um, and we've just been off to the races. We started with 2 trucks,
Yeah,
and we're close to 240 at the end of 2022.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's been, you guys have had a lot of growth. I think you've experienced a lot of growth in the last few years as well with everything that's been going on. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. I think that, I mean, people who handle imports to the West Coast are obviously familiar with how drayage fits into the picture for them and the rails and everything else. But I think everything got a heightened sense of awareness, and a spotlight was really just shown right on the West Coast, LA Long Beach specifically, from 2020 to 2022, really all through 22. So talk to me about, and even still, as we have labor negotiations that are ongoing, but talk to me about like what happened for drayage providers during COVID. Like 2020 starts, things get a little crazy, and like what was it like for you guys managing a business in the dray space through that time?
Well, let's start. I am able to answer that question because I have coffee.
Yeah, okay.
I met the guidelines. 2022 started. It was a little. I actually went on vacation in March of 2020. 20 when the whole thing started, and I was on my way back from Hawaii, and everyone had masks on in the. This is the end of February, and everyone had masks on in the airport. No idea why. It was like, what's really going on? And then come March, it just everything just started taking a dive, and everyone just started. All of the business essentially was evacuating, just like everyone, and it was just a shelter in place with the world. And so at that point, fear starts to drive what you do. And it's like, hey, what do I do with people? What do I do with the assets? What do I do with the trucks? What do I do with the chassis? And the drivers themselves are our lifeblood. So if they start leaving, you start, we got a problem. And that it started snowballing. And then all of a sudden, it was all you can eat. Essentially what the market turned to, and
Right?
it was name your price and all you could eat. And it was get as many trucks under your belt as possible. Basically the number of trucks equal the amount of money you're going to make the day. Right now, I mean, if you think about it, in a shift, the truck turns about 4 times, depending on how far away he's going. So if you're doing four pre-pulls or 4 local pulls, you're getting 4 pulls a day out of the guy. So every guy you would bring on, you're like, all right, I got 8 more, 4 more containers, 8 more containers.
Right.
And you were just collecting them, if you will, hoping that your insurance approved them. And that was at the time. And then it just, it was a no holds barred. I mean, it was.
There's more freight than you guys would ever be able to handle. So it's just take as much as you can. And I guess, kind of shining a light there on a part that I hadn't considered before. You guys, everybody talked about like a labor shortage through COVID, but specifically where you guys are at, even if it's there, it's a matter of like, how can I be the people to access the driver capacity under, our business so that we can run those guys into the.
My take on what went on was that it wasn't necessarily a driver shortage. I don't believe so. It was just the assets themselves. It was just too much. It really was. And it was just too much for too long. Typically it's like any peak, you go for as long as you can, and then you give yourself a good reset to, clean up the yards, clean up your accounting, clean up your procedures. We just didn't have it. It was a year and a half's worth of, bananas. And you weren't able to reset yourself. And it was, if you can't get yourself a hard reset, that's where these things come from. It's tiring. It really is. And not in a bad way. It's just, it is a lot, and it's very, very stressful. So at that point internally, it was how do I best manage the stress levels of my people to make sure they don't lose it or, quit, cry. It was a very stressful time, Although at the end of the whole thing, and I don't care what part of logistics you're in, everyone made a lot of money.
Yeah. That's accurate.
Unfortunately.
Yep. Or you were running a very poor business model, right? So talk to me then about like as things have eased, as things have cooled off, as demand has become less at the West Coast ports right now. You guys obviously had to grow during that time. You had to you brought on more trucks, you brought on more operators, you brought on new customers, most likely, whether you were working with a broker or a BCO directly in that point. But how has that now been affected as the levels have, come down, or maybe some of those shippers have shifted certain percentages of their imports to Southern or East Coast ports? How do you continue to sustain your 240 trucks, as business levels drop? How are you guys balancing that right now? And let's answer that first, and then I have a follow-up to that.
Over the years, it's been a different stress level, or a different, I would say, this is a 240 truck bottom, if you will. We've had a 10 truck bottom, 10 truck level stresses. We've had a 30 truck level stresses. It's the same stress. It's just more of it as you grow.
Right.
It's the same problems. I need more loads to fill this many trucks. Well, now I don't need, I need enough loads to fill 240 trucks, and it's a tough market to find it if the market itself is oversaturated. I mean, you call any BCO or shipper, they're happy with we're good right now. Where, they're good right now because you're caller number 10 of the day to sell the same services that the other guys
it's
sold.
No different than any other service, right now. And then it's especially no different when we're in the slow part of the year right now for drayage, for trucking transportation in general. And, Q1 is always a slow quarter. We just came off of a peak. So you're trying to essentially stand out in a sea of people offering up their capacity, because in general right now there's less volume to match capacity in the market.
Yeah, it's look at my capacity. You don't need me, but look how much capacity I have. For my sales guys, it annoys me now when they sell, hey, I have this many trucks or this many chassis. That's not the sell right now. The sell is what are you going to do for me in 2023? What are you going to do different than these other goofballs that I work with? Or what are these? What's going to make me look at you, essentially? And right now, it's not, I have this many trucks, I have this many chassis, I have this many yards, I answer the phone this many times. That's not what people are looking for right now. My take right now is for 2023 is more so how quiet can your drayman be? That's my take, because we've been very, very noisy over the last 2 years ish. That's for me. That's where I picked up most of my following on LinkedIn, from the noise, and I've created some noise. I'm not going to lie. It's great for marketing, but it's not noisy right now, and you have to twist your marketing to adjust to the times and the needs right now. My takes are it's quiet logistics, and that means that you don't hear from your drayman. The drayman's job is just to get it done and shut the F up. That's historically, that's where we sit. We sit in the shadows. We are not sexy. We are not pretty. We don't have fun.
No fun. I don't know. Your LinkedIn would say otherwise. So I'm going to come back.
Okay. I'll take it. I'll take that. And that's what my goal in the LinkedIn, or my LinkedIn, is to portray that. But I will tell you, the ability to have a conversation, the ability to have a conversation in the logistics industry puts you by far above many, many competitors, in that they are not able to articulate what it is they do, or how it is that they're better, or how it is that they can help improve somebody's process.
I mean, I love that, because that's at the kind of core of what I've done in my career, right? Being in basically high stakes sales as a provider, and being able to understand, what value do you add and how do you articulate that effectively to your audience. But I think also, I've talked to enough shippers to know that that's what they're looking for. Shippers get bombarded all the time with people who can't even articulate an email to say why you should talk to them.
The why. People cannot explain the why.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
That's
good
it.
stuff for sure. I think that that's something that our industry is lacking, and probably a lot of industries are lacking, because I'm not going to lie, sales is hard. So props to everyone out there right now who's working in sales in a slow market. If you're getting new business, you're definitely doing something right. So you're able to articulate that value. Okay, so I want to talk about something because I think it's very relevant right now. We are sitting on, I think we're at 7 months past the expiration of the West Coast labor negotiation discussions. Gene Soroka just said that he thinks he's less optimistic now that there's going to be resolution on getting those done in even March or April. It could push back into summer. We've seen a large diversion of imports from the West Coast to other ports for various reasons during COVID, right? More than just the labor negotiations. But I think the reason that they continue to be sustained that way, even when rates can be more attractive and transits can be more attractive on the West Coast, is because of that fear of getting caught up in some type of labor strike and having your stuff literally stuck there at the port. Nobody wants that on their head when the executives come down and say, why don't we have our materials or our products? But talk to me as like boots on the ground. You're pretty involved in the LA Long Beach, groups there. You've heard from some of these guys. Tell us what you think. Is that even like a realistic fear? Should people be worried about that right now? To what extent? And just give us your kind of 2 cents as someone who's a lot closer to the situation.
Sure. The funny story, I met you for the first time at Manifest. I
Yeah.
met Gene Soroka for the first time at Manifest. I went up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Was he there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm like really mad that I didn't meet him
The
because I wanted to meet him.
the very first day I'm checking in and I'm like looking behind me like, oh my gosh, he's there. He's
Yeah.
there. He's like
Yeah.
a celebrity
I
for
know.
this year.
Yeah, I'm literally already like regrets that I
Yeah.
didn't meet
And
him.
I was a little giddy. Like definitely one of these like behind me, taking a selfie, but although he's behind me and I'm taking it really of him. 100%, 100%.
Okay, so did you get a chance to talk to him?
I did for about 3 seconds, and then I actually saw him again, and I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" I saw him I went to a Los Angeles Transportation Club dinner, which was a
Okay.
couple weeks ago, and I approached him afterwards, and I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" I was the guy from Vegas, and he says, "Yes, I hope yes." Gene, if you're listening, it's me again.
Right? I'll send him the recording.
But no, at the transportation club, it was interesting because there were the 2 port directors, Gene and Mario, Long Beach and LA, respectively. And the viewpoint during this take, there was a viewpoint from one of the gentlemen from the labor negotiations who gave a very heartwarming viewpoint of
Yeah.
what it is like from their eyes. And a lot of times with logistics, it is very important if you understand what it is that person before you and what that person after you is doing and or feeling involved in the movement. You can direct your actions you can direct what you do to get your best course of action.
Right.
What annoys that person? What do they not like? What do they like? And so on and so on. Well, this gentleman's viewpoint was he had stated that the union has not stopped and the union is not going to stop, and that they will continue working through the negotiations, which was I guess I'm in LA, so I have to say, yes, everyone ship your stuff through LA. This is where it's at. But
Right.
realistically, there is fear, and the people don't want it is what it is, but the people don't want to get into the positions that they put themselves in during the pandemic, where boxes were locked up and the orders were missed, POs were canceled, and they lost buku amounts of money.
Yeah.
And right now it's just because of like how tight the market is, everyone's jobs on the line. So nobody wants to make a mistake. And in that the LA information is all over the papers and it's in our market day to day. It's an easy target for that person who's able to make mistakes boss to read that and say, hey, you read this in the paper, why did you do this? Or you read this in the,
Right.
on the news publication, why would you have shipped this here? And it's
Right.
just, for that position, it's just easier for them to reroute because they have other warehouses, they have other, it stinks that I'm in LA and that it has to happen, but
But
that's
from what I mean, so from what it sounds like when you hear them talk about it, they're committed to working through this. They're committed to not stopping labor. I think that even the men of the union understand, like, they want to continue working. They want to have things to work on. And so it doesn't help, at this point they're trying to, I mean, obviously we're coming up on we're 7 months past, we're going to go longer, and there still hasn't been any strike, even if like a threat of it. Like, they're obviously already continuing on in these negotiations and these conversations. I get that they're difficult conversations to have, but I think I would juxtapose this with like the rail strikes that everybody talked about a whole lot, and we came a little closer there to something materializing. But even then, people showed their resolve and commitment to get things figured out and to compromise and to move forward. I think the difference is, and then what we've seen play out is that to the shipper listening, like, when it came to rail, you have a very, very limited choices in alternate solutions if you're going to put your stuff on the rail or not, especially depending on like the type of, was it a bulk commodity? Was it a tanker commodity? And so a lot of people could not have really avoided that. And it was just a hope it doesn't happen. But if it happens, here's what I'm going to then try to do. Whereas when we're talking about imports, people have now for months been making, I can just shift here instead. And we'll call it like, if there's a slight increase in cost, it's just the cost of avoiding a potential disruption here. But there's a lot more options available to people right now in avoiding a potential labor disruption at the LA Long Beach port or West Coast port than there is for a rail strike. So I think that that's what we're seeing right now is people, who have kind of been watching all these headline news nonstop now for over a year on rail strikes, labor strikes at the ports and everything else. And they're just making these decisions proactively to try to avoid risk. But I remain optimistic. I think that you would side with me there, that we remain optimistic that they're going to be able to.
I think they will too. Yeah.
Yeah. Without avoid a strike.
It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of when, it's not a matter if, it's just a matter of when. Okay. And the LA market here, unlike most other markets currently, now the others will adapt, but we by far have the most infrastructure and the most choices as far as vessel calls. Like if you're going to, flying out of LA going to Palm Springs from LA, you probably have 2 flights a week. If you're flying out of LA going to Chicago, there's 30 choices a day.
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful analogy, actually.
That's how many vessels come in here to LA. It's just, if the guy misses one, he's got the next one there is, just put on the boat 2 hours later. It's not really that easy, but it's that quick. And the infrastructure, the rail infrastructure, the warehousing, the amount of trucks that come in here and the amount of loads back out of here, it produces for good runs for the over-the-road trucks, which brings them into the market. Just California's a big market.
Yeah. Okay. We have a question from Tony in the audience that I want to get to. And then I have one more thing that we're going to touch on because we are somehow already at 24 minutes. But Tony asked, from a shipper perspective, intermodal is often connected to drayage. Why should a shipper have a separate relationship for each? Is there a cost and or service advantage? Just trying to understand more like that dynamic, I think, between the rail providers and the dray providers.
I think it depends on where your containers are. For me, I'm LA. So you may have an intermodal. I'm not sure where Tony ships, but if he has intermodals, let's say if his DC's in Chicago, he would have a DC drayman in Chicago. I would say you're best apt to have relationships with the drayman where your volumes are. If you have limited volumes in Wisconsin, I wouldn't recommend, adding that extra shipper or that extra carrier to your mix if you don't need to, where you could, broker your smaller markets out. But if you have, let's say, a few thousand containers for LA, let's talk. I am talking to the terminals. If you're talking to your broker, honestly, your broker's only talking to me. Uh, and
Yep.
they're talking to me and they're saying it's a lot of smoke and mirrors because
Mhm.
you, you don't know who the next guy is down the line. If you're talking to me, I can tell you who the guy is down the line. I am that guy.
So
Uh,
let me jump in here because I think something that we talked about is going to be the perfect example for him. And I don't want to run out of time. I want you to talk about this.
sure.
We were talking the other day and you were telling me more about something that you've seen happening a lot lately, that at first it was kind of like some investigative work. You had to figure out like what's going on and how is this happening. I think you know what I'm talking about. Will you just walk us through that and give the example of like what happens when you add in that extra layer instead of going directly to your drayman provider?
So what happened was we have a transload facility in Long Beach, and what we ended up doing by accident, we loaded the wrong truck with the wrong stuff. We recognized it about 30 minutes later, called the carrier back and said, "Hey, can you?" Or called him, say, "Hey, can you come back?" Blah blah blah. We loaded the wrong product. He's like, "No problem, I'll be back, but I can't come back right away. I have to come back in a few hours. This makes you want to do one of these," and you're like, "Okay, no problem." So the guy shows back up. Let me put it this way: a truck shows back up and
Mhm.
backs up into the dock, and we start scratching our heads. It's the same seal number as this trailer that left,
Mhm.
but it's a different trailer
Right.
because one was white and one has writing all the way down the wall, both sides. So then you're like, wait a second, this is not the trailer I loaded. This is the product. Nothing's, this one, thank God, nothing's missing. But
Mhm.
what happened here? Well, you start investigating. This was our first one that we caught, which started snowballing from there, and then we knew what to look for. But we started basically the trucks. You hire a long haul, let's say, big boy broker going from LA to New Jersey. I don't know, wherever the product's going. You got
Right.
hire them LA to New Jersey. They hire uh, Jose's Trucking, and
So I'm going to stop real quick
yes,
just to be clear
all right,
for our shippers. We're talking in this instance, the shipper, the BCO, has contracted a broker to handle their transload from the port and then handle the trucking portion of this shipment to its final destination. So we're talking about the BCO worked with a broker, and then the broker went and worked with another carrier who's working with you. So this is like
yes,
how
I'm
many
sorry.
layers we have.
The outbound trailer was booked by the broker. So the broker books the outbound trailer, sends me the transloading facility, a BOL. On the BOL says Jose's Trucking. He books Jose's Trucking. A truck shows up. This is the kicker. The truck shows up. That's, I don't, 123 transportation. That's who checks in, but he checks in with all of the correct information: the
Yeah.
pickup number, the handshake, the high five, the container number, anything you can think of. This gentleman who's at the gates knows what he's picking up. So he
Right.
picks up the container. Unbeknownst to us, this is what we found out. This gentleman is picking it up. He's actually a local LA trucker. He takes to a transloading facility, wherever that may be. In this case, it was City of Industry. He takes the City of Industry. He gets unloaded. Because he is not the trailer taking it across country. Now,
Right.
that said, trailer number two, the unload and trailer number two, I have no idea who they are.
Mhm.
I, I,
And
barely-
neither does the
anyone
the
involved.
shipper, the
No,
BCO at this point.
no one authorized the second
Yes.
transload. No
Mhm.
one authorized the trailer doors opening.
Mhm.
No one authorized a second carrier, which essentially would be a broker to a broker to a broker model. And the problem with this whole process, there isn't a problem as long as all of the product shows up at the next location, because questions don't get asked. But what does create a problem is when that shipment shows up in New Jersey and is short. They're not going to be short like a whole pallet or half a truck. Why? Because you'll notice it. What happens, the problem becomes when that thing is short 10, 15 cartons. That's the kicker. And that's what's going on, that these guys at these transload facilities, oh, I'll take one of these. Oh, that looks good. I'll take one of these and I'll take one of these. Now,
And when you guys discovered this problem, we're obviously not going to put any BCOs information out there, but like you shared with me, the product in this particular instance was like some of these were over $3,000 per unit that was on this truck.
Some were in that particular one. Yes. Others I've had as low as $30. And and what ends up happening, they may even take the box, open the box, take out the product, and put the box back in at the transload facility.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening now, it gets to the unloading warehouse in New Jersey, and they're like, "Well, didn't you notice that the boxes were light?" And it's like, "No, we didn't, because we didn't remove your stuff."
And I want to say, like, maybe we glossed over this, but like the kicker in this for the audience listening is that these people aren't just like, they don't not know what they're doing. They have a seal replicator. They're replicating your exact original seal number and resealing these trailers so that by the looks of the seal that matches the original shipping paperwork that you shipped your load out on, when that receiver is receiving in their container or their truckload now of freight, if something's missing, the seal matches the shipper, then they can only take that back to you and say, this came from you in a sealed trailer and we're missing our product. And now the blame gets put back on JCT at the transload facility, when in reality, there was a broker who contracted with 2 other carrier partners that were transloading and stealing product in the middle of all of this. And so I think that was a huge eye opener for me. And it just made me more aware of like the exposure that BCOs put themselves out to when they don't know exactly who's handling their
100%.
products.
Words of wisdom that we have done on our end, and that a BCO can protect themselves as well, is take pictures of the entire trailer and tractor that shows up at your docks. That will help you with your insurance claims should you need to file one, because back those up with the ones at your loading facility. You put the 2 together, and then now, okay, you've built yourself a story. And that story is what's needed to be, or that picture is what's needed to be painted back to the insurance company should something go wrong. Now, again, when it gets to be 10 cartons, 15 cartons for what, $1,000, $1,500, whatever it may be, at the insurance filing claim, it becomes an annoyance. And then sometimes you don't file a claim just because it's more annoying than anything else. It's time consuming.
Yeah. We're not talking always about like some grand scale theft here, but we are talking about the fact that in reality, you're not in control of the security of your products if you don't actually know who's handling them. And theft does happen, and it's not children. Like this is progressive. People are progressing in their ability to make this a lot more difficult to realize. Like it took you, thankfully, you guys accidentally did like misload a trailer one day. And through that error, you were able to realize something was going on. And then you were able to start looking into it more across the board and realize that there is an actual issue here. Now, it wasn't your issue. I also want to be clear. This was not something that Ian's company was doing wrong. He's doing what he's being told to do, but it is shedding light on the fact that like BCOs, when they're outsourcing this and there's a lot of multiple parties involved, they don't know what's happening with their freight. And, they won't know until stuff comes up missing. Yeah.
Check how many shipments. My question to the audience would be, how many shipments have you had that are missing only a few cartons?
Yeah.
I would check those, because that's where I'm telling you, that's where, and then that'll rabbit hole you down to like where it's occurring. But it is happening, and it's happening across the board. When I noticed it, I said something to a few customers, and they were all like, yeah, we know. Yep. Yes, that's happening. The outbound truck is who books that truck, and how what the relationship is with them and their people is just as important as everyone along the chain's relationships with everyone else. If they're outsourcing their local pickups so that they can maximize their line haul, do you know that?
Yeah. I'm not trying to talk poorly about other truckload brokerages, because like, hey, I am one, but like, let's think about this too. And I think this is kind of comes back to Tony's question, and what you touched on there is like cutting out that middleman. Because if you are only working with the broker and you provide back images to the broker that prove that you guys did not load the trailer that shows up, does the shipper trust that broker enough that broker is going to come back and say, hey, the person we tendered this load to transloaded your freight and stole some of it? Or do they just tell the shipper, this must have been on the original transload facility, we'll get it taken care of, or we'll make you whole for it? So like, there's an opportunity again for the shipper to still not know what's really happening because of these layers. And I hope that doesn't happen, but I also know that It does. I know that it does. I hope it's not happening to you if you're listening to this. But I do know that that is how some businesses are run and operated. So we're going to run out of time here, but Ian, like, thank you so much. I hope a couple of things that, people took away from this that I learned talking to you recently is that the more layers, the more complicated. And if you are, doing that type of substantial volume in certain ports, maybe understanding how you can eliminate brokers from any situation that you don't need to when there's some good asset providers there, or maybe not even eliminating the brokers, right? But just being more involved with the draymen that are being used. Like, that's something that some brokers do that's unique, is bring the actual providers to the table with the shippers too, so that they can still facilitate that, but that they want there to be transparency. That's something that we do in the full truckload space. I don't see why it couldn't be done the same in the drayage side as well. So asking questions as a shipper, as a BCO, to understand, what's really going on and getting to the root of some issues, and knowing your draymen, even though they say they don't have any fun. I don't think that's always the case. So they'd love to talk.
I can show anyone how, like I said.
All right, guys, call Ian if you are doing any type of imports into LA Long Beach. Again, they actually are one of the largest asset drayage providers, and they have an awesome thing going there. And I know that for a fact. Ian, it's been great getting to talk to you.
Thank you.
Anybody has questions that they didn't get to ask, or if you're watching this on replay, go ahead and just drop them in the comments on the LinkedIn chat, and Ian and I can come back to those over the next week and answer those for you guys. And thank you so much for meeting us both today for coffee, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye, guys.